Thank goodness the boys arrived to save us from the mundane. The show has been a hit for Amazon, but what's been missing? With any adaptation, there will be parts that get cut out. We figured that if we can't get The Boys Season 3 immediately, we might as well sell you on reading the comic book series. After all, there are some missing moments from these heroes' escapades that you won't want to miss. Just a heads up though, this won't endear you to any of the characters if that's what you're hoping for in this list. Kimiko, also known as the Female, is one of the most unapologetically gruesome characters in the entire show. She's a ruthless weapon used by the boys to help fight the Seven. Her origin story is dark and incredibly unfortunate. It's as if Wolverine was even sadder. In the show, Kimiko and her brother are abducted by a mysterious organization and trained to become the weapons they are today. It isn't until after her escape that she's exposed to the Compound V formula that gives her super soldier abilities. A member of the boys rarely has such skills in the series, but quite common in the comics. However, her comic origin story is a tad more dreadful than this. When Kimiko was a baby, she falls into an entire vat of Compound V. She proceeds to eliminate the Japanese doctor who created the V serum there and is captured. Scientists study and probe her body for years to better understand Compound V and its effects on humans. She's a human lab rat for almost her entire life in the comics. Again, that differs from the series. We're not saying the Female has it easy in the show. All we mean is the comics give her tragedy an extra layer of sadness.
I got it.
You got it! I got it!
Here comes a warning. Some of the entries in this video brush over mature content. We figure that's obvious given the fact we're discussing the boys, but it needs to be said regardless. Back to our scheduled programming regarding Starlight and her introduction to the Seven. So in the series, there's a cringeworthy scene where the Deep Sea drops trout in front of Starlight and makes her an explicit offer to ensure her acceptance into the Seven. It's the action that provokes a new understanding of what this group is to her. Annie has to reconcile that these people are only pretending to be good. It shatters the vision she has of her time in the Seven, and it's one of the darker moments for her character. Unfortunately, things are even worse in the comic book version. The Deep Sea isn't even there for the moment. Instead, a group of male heroes like Homelander and A-Train initiate the same harassment and continue to take it further. It's a sinister moment that haunts Starlight for the rest of the series. We're thankful the scene is toned down a bit in the series without losing the overall message about an assault in the workplace. Homelander is not a good person. He's what Superman would be if he had way too much of a god complex. We see this time and time again in the series, but believe it or not, it's even worse in the comic books. Yep, this is the writers toning his character down. As previously mentioned in the comics, more harassment and assaults come from Homelander than we see in the show. He's a deviant that knows no one will stand up to him, so he takes whatever he wants.
I'm the Homelander. And I can do whatever the fuck I want.
We still see that trait in the show, just in some different ways. There's also the plane hijacking scene. That's a more challenging situation to discuss here, given its sensitive nature in a real-life setting. Look, all we will say is the plane you see in this series is nondescript. It helps lighten the tone when Homelander messes up by being so arrogant. In the comics, though, it's a moment of tragedy in American history that still happens because of his failure. Then, he doesn't even mourn the lives lost. He just worries about the PR nightmare. Definitely makes him a villain quickly, seeing as he fails to prevent a disaster to preserve his own ego. Huey and Annie are adorable in this show. Let's make that clear right off the bat. We will accept no Huey and Annie hate here, okay? We found it so endearing that Annie joins the boys in Season 2, given the rough start they had in Season 1. For those unaware, Huey and Annie meet on a park bench by pure coincidence after the two have had a tough day with work. Our guy Huey discovers that Annie is Starlight while working for the boys. He doesn't leave her because of this though. Only later, Annie finds that Huey's been giving the Butcher information and things fall apart. In case you haven't figured out the point of this list yet, that's not how things occur in the comics. Huey's a bit of a goofball in the book version, but more on that later on. The point is, there's this running joke that Huey can't figure out Annie is Starlight despite seeing her in outfit multiple times. It's only when Annie floats in front of him that Huey figures it out. Huey is the one who calls off the relationship then, but they end up back together in the comics too. Look at this man. Look at Huey Campbell. This comic book character certainly looks like Simon Pegg turned into a pulp and ink character. Now, you might be saying to yourself, narrator, that's just happenstance. Well, it's not. The creators confirm the character is entirely inspired by Simon Pegg and his many characters. How then do we get the version Amazon's original series presents us with? This Huey is tall and slim. Plus, the dude is American when Huey is supposed to be Scottish. It would seem like all the odds are stacked against him, yet this Huey doesn't totally bum fans out. Part of the reason is Simon Pegg's cameo in the show. The writers knew Pegg wouldn't be the right fit for the role, literally built around his likeness due to the actor's age. Instead, they figured a fitting tribute would be to give him the part of Huey Campbell, Huey's father. Talk about a perfect send-up to the man who literally made the character. So yes, the Huey you see on screen is not the Huey we know from the comics. He's undoubtedly nerdy and lacks confidence. In most ways, people would define Huey as a loser. However, the series version, aka Huey Prime, is a lot more reliable than his comic counterpart.
You know, you're right. It would have been stupid to come along.
So, we don't want to become critics in this list, but we will say the A-Train and Popclaw relationship feels a bit forced at times. The two of them share a dependence on Compound V that causes conflicts in their life, but putting them together felt a bit odd. No, this isn't saying they make a bad couple, it just didn't seem to be justified in the story. What's worse is the decision to end Popclaw at the hands of A-Train. Popclaw was a promising character early in the series, but barely makes it 5 episodes. Did you know she's actually still alive in the comic books? Their relationship is quite literally what does her in. The two never even share a panel together in the entire run of the boys series. They certainly know each other in the storyline, but there's no relationship in the comic books. To us, it feels like the writers needed a way to add drama to A-Train's narrative, so they pulled in Popclaw for the ride. While it certainly wasn't a dud of a subplot, it wasn't emotional either. Some fans feel the writers wasted too many opportunities to build out Popclaw before taking her off the show. Viewers will never forget the first time they saw A-Train speed past Huey to kick off this series. It catches your attention immediately in the trailers and sticks with you. Talk about a real standout moment. Poor Huey never saw it coming, and Robin certainly didn't either. It's tragic, yet funny at times, which is all the violence in The Boys if we're being honest. In that episode, we just see A-Train run right through Robin. He simply says he needs to keep running, and we're not clear about his intended direction. To Huey, it certainly feels like a senseless decision that caused him to lose his girlfriend. It's super random, and that's part of the dark humor involved. The comic book moment is much more political in a sense. Huey Campbell still loses Robin, but Vought and their team of lawyers argue she was collateral damage. Ouch! A-Train is pursuing a criminal when Robin steps out into the street.
I was chasing these bank robbers. She just stepped in the middle of the street.
See, he is trying to get to someone here and not just running because he's a supe. Don't get us wrong, it's still terrible, but at least he had a reason for accidentally running through her. Remember when we talked about Homelander being even worse in the comics? Yeah, this is another reason right here. Billy Butcher is absolutely hilarious at times, given his weird dialogue yet dark delivery.
Morning, sunshine. Harry!
Got your message. Thank you for being an upstanding citizen.
He's a badass that didn't always want to be one. Most of his aggression towards Soup stems from his relationship with Homelander. If you're not familiar with the Butcher's origin story, let's break it down for you again real quickly. So basically, Billy has a wife, Becca. The two of them have a comfortable home until you-know-who shows up to wreck everything. Homelander, as always, takes what he wants and ends up getting Becca pregnant. Vought Industries takes care of things from there in the show. However, the comics tell a different story. Billy is there when Ryan is born. Becca doesn't make it through the process, and Ryan immediately begins shooting laser beams. Billy is forced to end his own son. Homelander doesn't even give a vested interest. With Becca back, it's hard to see where the actual motivation is now. Let's see where things go in season 3 and how Billy handles this newfound reality outside the comic book norm. So we were a bit mean to Homelander just then, but we don't care. However, we do need a fact check from the comics to explain something. We just said Homelander takes no vested interest in what happens to Becca and Ryan during the comic book run. There's a reason for that. He's not the father. See, Billy thinks John is the one who slept with his wife. That is not the case in the Pulp series. In actuality, Black Noir disguises himself as Homelander before the event takes place. In short, Black Noir is equally terrible in the comics. There's more mystery there we don't want to spoil, but just know he's Ryan's actual father in the comics. This won't happen in the Prime original version thanks to the changes in season 2. Homelander and Ryan both have new fates given to them by the show writers. He's trying to teach his son that he can grow up to be even more powerful than his father. It's an exciting and comical developing relationship that proves more interesting than the comics treatment of Ryan. Just keep an eye on Black Noir, okay? Let's sum it all up with one last entry that puts it all into perspective. Whether you read the comics or not, it's safe to say you're enjoying the antics and serious subject matters discussed in The Boys. It's not an idea for the faint of heart, and certainly one of the more gruesome entertainment outlets available to Amazon Prime viewers right now. We're willing to bet you've watched the series and think it's the most violent thing you've ever seen. Okay, well, maybe not ever, but it's totally up there. Top 3 at least. Does that work?
Okay, this is insane.
Anyways, what we're trying to say is that you haven't seen anything until you've checked out the comics. It's a whole different ballgame. All the violence and darkness present in the show shows up 10 times more often in the comics. The creators weren't afraid to take things to a darker place and show the vices of superheroes we never see in mainstream outlets anymore. Heck, this list proves that more than anything. It's the most significant change from the comics to the show, and you just have to read them to see. Not to mention, you might get some hints as to what the future awaits for our not-so-amazing heroes. Are you even more excited for Season 3 of The Boys now? Tell us the most shocking difference you noticed between the comics and series in the comments below. As always, you can subscribe to ScreenRant to keep up to date with all the latest content on our channel.